Voices of History, Israel, Series 4, Number 2, Pioneering Years, Recollections. An interview with Prime Minister Golda Meir, Part 1. As you hear Part 1 of the recording, listen particularly for the following. 1. How did Golda Meir, as a young girl in Milwaukee, become involved in labor Zionism? 2. Why did she leave the United States and settle in Israel? 3. In what way, does Golda Meir say, is the Jewish state more than she hoped for? 4. In what ways, does she say, is it less? Here to introduce the recording is Dr. Samuel J. Citron.
In the summer of 1972, the State of Israel's Prime Minister, Golda Meir, was one of only a few women heads of government in the world, and on all counts conceded to be one of the outstanding personalities of the 20th century. In early August of that summer, only several days after a bout with the flu, she graciously took time out of her extremely crowded schedule to meet with us in her home in Jerusalem, to share with students in America and other parts of the English-speaking world her recollections of her early years, first in Milwaukee, where she grew up, and later in what was then Palestine, as well as to recall some of the great historic moments in which she played a key role. Here, then, is our interview with Madame Golda Meir, Prime Minister of Israel, especially recorded for you. Madam Prime Minister Golda Meir, you came to Israel from the United States a long time ago, in 1921. Could you tell us why you decided to come here, some of the things you looked for, and to what extent they were realized?
It can be very short, it can be very long. I was brought up in a home where all the Jewish problems, Jewish affairs, and Jewish interests were something that were natural in our home. And maybe due mainly to an older sister, I was influenced also in organized Jewish affairs, stemming way back even from Russia. Therefore, their house was always full of people that were discussing problems and were vitally interested in problems. I was a very young girl when the war broke out, First World War, with everything that went with it as far as Jews were concerned. During the war and even after the war was over, there were still pogroms of Petlura and the others. Because I was conscious of a Jewish problem, and among my sister's friends were Zionists, labor Zionists, and what was then known as territorialists. There's the idea that Jews needed a country of their own was something accepted. The question was, should it be Palestine, should it be something else? And 1916, I think, I made up my mind that my ideas are closer and more identified with the labor Zionist movement. But then, to me, it was a very simple problem at that time, that if Palestine had to be the home of the Jewish people, and it had to be built, and something had to be done about it, then those that believe in it should go. And it was only after that I decided that I'm going to the then Palestine that I joined the Labor Zionist Party, which was Parvatzian at that time. And of course, I couldn't go during the war. And we started planning, my husband and I, that we were going during the first opportunity. Some of my friends in Milwaukee, then during the war, when it was possible, they volunteered into the British Army as the Jewish Legion. And they went over, and we came in 1921. Before we came here, we decided that we would go to Akrutza. And we came and we went to Merchavia. To me, work, physical work, primarily agricultural work, and Akrutza, this was the fulfillment, as far as I was concerned, of what labor Zionism was. It was going back to the land, to Jewish sovereignty, and the establishment of a new society. So we lived in the Akrutza and Merchavia about 3 years, and because due to the illness of my husband that couldn't go on with physical work, we had to leave. Well, since I came to the city, I was involved in various activities. I worked in Sodalbana, I worked in the Histadrut, and naturally I participated in everything that happened thereafter. Well, you asked me whether everything that I thought would be is, it is more and less. I, like many others of my colleagues, believed naturally that there would be an independent Jewish state. But I don't think that any one of us could have said at any time that he is certain that during his life this would happen, and it did. That is more than I really, not more than what I hoped for, but more than I believed I would see realized as why less I thought many more Jews would come. I thought that some of the evils, or most of the evils that we have in our society now would not be in the Jewish state. But here it is, it's an independent state. It's a population of about 3 million, about 2.6 million or 2.7 million Jews that have come from all over the world. This is a different country altogether than what I found in 1921. And Jews are coming, and I think that over and over again it has been proven that this is the place where Jews can come to and live as they want to, and primarily live as Jews. I think Russian Aliyah proves it anew now. I believe that Israel, a Jewish state, there would be no criminals, nobody would steal, certainly nobody would kill anybody, and many other things. I remember that at some meeting, I don't remember exactly what we were discussing long before the state was established, I said, I'm convinced that in the Jewish state nobody will try to smuggle in anything without paying duty on it. People laughed at me then. Now, of course, people laugh even more because it's been proven that we're the same, more or less, like other people. And yet, this is not exactly the same. There is a kibbutz movement, there's a moshav movement, there is a large labor organization, there is a sense for social justice, even if we have not accomplished everything that I and many others like me would like to. We haven't given up hope. But we've seen the realization of something that, at least I have, seen this happen in my lifetime when many, many Jews for generations who were better and maybe would, at any rate, they did not live to see it. And on the other hand, we've seen the greatest tragedy that happened to Jews in my life. But certainly if somebody would ask me if what I thought during all these years, naturally not one moment of regret or anything of that kind. I think this is the story.
You know, we're dealing with voices of history, and we're dealing with history. But you've been involved in so much of the history of Israel that it's almost difficult to pinpoint. If I were to ask you, is there any one thing that stands out in your mind, in your various activities in the past, that you cherish as a very important historical event in which you participated?
Well, one thing that is anyone who was here would think of that immediately. That was the day of the establishment of the state, of the declaration of our independence. And with all the fears and the dangers and the wars that came after that.
This is the end of part one. Now that you have heard part one, it might be a good idea to discuss it. Here are some suggested topics for consideration. 1. Golda Meir says that she went to Palestine because she thought that those who believed in building a Jewish state should go there personally. Would this apply to everybody at that time? Is this still true today? For everyone? For some? For none? What are your reasons for thinking as you do? 2. Golda Meir says Israel is not exactly the same as other countries. In which ways? In which ways is it that to Jews in America? Please turn over the tape to play part 2.